Recording is begun. I'm good. Recording is begun. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Salem Central School Board of Education to order at 6 p.m. Would people please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin our action, I just wanted to take a moment. I understand there were some questions about seeing an executive session at the beginning of our agenda. And that was a courtesy. That is not an agenda item, but it was just to let people know that we would be seeking into executive session at the beginning. It cannot occur without board action, so it is not a separate agenda item. It is action that the board takes to have this happen. So I'd like to entertain a motion to move to executive session for the purpose of the discussion of a particular person leading to the appointment of that particular person.
So move.
Motion by Peter,
Second.
second by Heidi. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. We will be gone for approximately half an hour, 3 minutes or so. So this meeting will be on pause while we are doing that. You are.
I'm the chair. Oh.
Thank you for your patience. We'd like to resume our meeting. And at this time, I'd like to call for any amendments. Do you have any amendments or changes to our agenda?
We do. We have an added addendum with 3 action items on them. One is a leave of absence and an appointment, one is an independent evaluator appointment, and one is an agreement. For approval.
This time, I'd like to get ready to open up the meeting for the public comment. But we have, at our last meeting, we adopted a newly revised policy on public comment. I would just like to record some of the changes so that you'll understand where we're coming from, and how we're going to be running the public comment session. For anyone interested, there are copies of the newly revised policy over by the door. We understand that our community members wish to be heard on various issues in the district. The board would like to hear from all of the individuals who wish to address the board with a comment. In reviewing and revising the policy, it was the board's wish to create a foundation for productive and purposeful meetings, creating norms that lead to productive discussions. Having a policy that allows public comment and expression at board meetings necessitates that we find a balance between setting operational guidelines and the public's right to free speech. Please know that the board does not wish in any way to seek to limit a speaker's opinion, but we wish to adhere to our newly revised policy to improve efficiency and maintain meeting decorum. So, as per our newly revised policy, we ask that all comments be directed to the board president and not to individual members of the board or the administration. We will be following our policy, which allows for the 2 comment sessions of no more than 30 minutes each. All individuals wishing to comment must come to the podium and introduce themselves. No speaker will be permitted to speak longer than 3 minutes and may not yield their time to another speaker. I'll be keeping the 30-minute timer. Heidi will be helping me. You'll see us communicating when we get close to the 3-minute limit. No individual may speak more than once on the same topic in either public comment session unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard and there is time remaining on the public comment period. All comments will be taken into consideration and follow-up will occur as necessary. This time is for comment only. It is not an actual time for conversation. Any questions asked may be answered at the discretion of the board, but the board may correct comments that are not accurate or refer to existing policies if there is a question. For members of the public who are not able to speak during the public comment periods, including when those periods are closed, they may submit comments to the board in writing. The address is in the policy, and our board members' contact information is also located on the school website. We'd like to thank you and thank the community in advance for your cooperation. So at this point, I would like to open up the meeting for public comment.
Good evening, Dr. Mike Nugent, grandfather of a pre-K learner and a third grader. As I do each meeting, I like to open up by reiterating the vision that was adopted by the school board over the summer, and that is to improve the school community to be invested in lifelong learning, growing, and becoming future ready. I also noted, however, on the same page of that document, under core values, is collaboration. We intentionally create opportunities for collaboration. And I suspect there are people seated here tonight that perceive that there wasn't sufficient collaboration prior to sports merger. So I would encourage you to implement and practice those core values. On your agenda, you have an intern, yet another intern. It's my understanding in the last 22 years in the school district at the secondary level, there have been only one individual who stayed here long enough to receive tenure, which is 3 years. And then he subsequently announced at the beginning of the next year that he was leaving to take a position at BOCES. So this represents a red flag in terms of your recruitment efforts, trying to attract people when there's just such an incredibly high turnover here, much less it disrupts any attempt to make a coherent, consistent organizational culture.
Yeah.
Lastly,
Would you please wrap up your?
yes, lastly, you just missed a supermajority on your budget vote by 7 votes. A little over 58% of the voters approved and were okay with a 6.9% increase. And now on your action items, you want to retreat to a 2.9. So I don't know what that says to the majority of voters who approved of 6.9, that now you're dropping back to 2.9. And I'm not sure that there's been a lot of discussion in that. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Heather Keys. I'm here to ask you to rethink your decision on the girls' basketball merger. I go back to the numbers I gave you guys at the last meeting with, we had 8 varsity, 8 JV, 14 modified girls. I had to leave at 6 to go coach a 12-year game. When I watched the meeting, Heidi had asked Mrs. Adams if the numbers were about the same as that as Ms. Moran gave her. She never answered that question. She just brought up that 9th graders could be put on varsity. That wasn't an answer. It wasn't an answer. She never gave numbers. Here's what I have for next year. We will have 3 seniors, 3 11th graders, and 2 10th graders, and 2 babies who will be in 12th and 11th grade, which would make 10 altogether. Pete has said multiple times that he talked to parents and athletes and stands at games, and that they were in agreement with a merger. He did that 3 times throughout the meeting at the times. I'm not sure what games they were at, but I do not believe it was at the varsity girls game. I've asked all but one parent, and I've asked the athletes, and none of them have ever had that conversation. There hasn't been a survey since November, which my kid just told me that was about drugs, so that has nothing to do with this. I apologize. I have been asking Mr. Moore this month to put out a survey to see what the kids would be interested in for sports next year for all seasons. There hasn't been one yet. It would have been the perfect time. So there would have been official numbers presented to you guys at the last meeting, so you could vote on the basketball merger. Basketball only needs 5 athletes on the court, not 11 like our fall sports, which merged, they work really well. I'm hoping to have a successful season with the soccer also being merged this coming year. Many schools around us have 8 to 10 players on the basketball team. I also did a little research on my own, and I found out is that this section does not need to know if we are merged until August 1st. And that's for varsity, not JV and modified. JV and modified can wait until the week of the first practice to be merged. I do know that it is a new merger and it could have waited to the next board meeting to be voted on. So you could have the numbers about both schools, which I did look into. Cambridge had 9 varsity players last year and they only had 1 senior, so they'll have 8 this year, the coming season, not including girls that are brought up. That, and if we were to keep everybody, that would make 16 girls on a team when you need 5 on a court at a time. There'd be a lot of girls sitting. For everyone on the board saying it would be awful if girls don't sign up, or what happens if they quit, they won't. There won't be a team. I'm well aware of that. But I can tell you everyone on this varsity team that is coming up are not quitters. They finish the season no matter what. I didn't give names at the last one, but I have permission from the children and their parents to say their names. And their names are Sophia Keys, Cameron Gillis, Reagan Jackson, Mackenzie Cloutier, Riley Gallagher, Meredith Barrett, Maddie Bogie, Sophia Shaw, and 2 other girls I won't name because they are possibilities. These girls are not quitters.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Yep, I know. There will be 3 seniors on the team, 1 being my own daughter, Sophia Keys, and 2 of her best friends. Sophia only plays for her friends because they are on the team to stay in shape with softball. She's not on the team to win. She's there to help her friends. Everyone on that team is like her family. Other 2 seniors are Reagan Jackson, whose favorite sport is basketball, Cameron Gillis. These 3 seniors will not be playing basketball now because we are merged with Cambridge. Why, you ask? Because they also do the play and usually get big roles in it. Now that we will be traveling back and forth to Cambridge for practices, they will have to choose between the 2 and choose the play. Also, I have asked all those girls that I have named out of the 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
We are trying to
All
get
7.
our new policy.
All 7 of them will not be playing this year because we are joining with Cambridge, either because of play or because they would rather do nothing, or they will be merging with, they will be doing wrestling. Since we do have time and you could re-vote on the merger at the end on the June board meeting, I would please ask to please reconsider it for the seniors who have played all these years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm Megan. I just have my ghost here. He has been a part of successful mergers, but I do think from watching the video last time and listening to people speak and talking to people outside of the board meetings, I don't think timelines are not known ahead of time. So while at the last meeting, you were asked to vote on something, I think a key point in that is those timelines, I think, are known pretty far in advance of when schools have to consider mergers. That would give you a time to meet with the students and the external stakeholders, time for the athletic director to have those meetings and those frank conversations. And I think one of the core values I've heard is collaboration. And if you're not willing to have those open conversations and have them in a time frame that allows for educated votes with all the information, that we're not doing a disservice. I was at meetings earlier this year where open communication was discussed, and I was asked, what do you suggest? And I think you've heard it in the last couple of board meetings, but I think people are struggling to see that being done for the reasons mentioned. So I just really ask that you consider what people have said the timelines that are being thrown at you for voting, and how much of that you can look forward for the future and have those discussions so you're not having them at the last minute and take those kids' thoughts into consideration. I say that too because there was a student that spoke here last time. I wasn't here, but watching the video, I was disheartened by how the reaction was to her. So I don't think I'm the only one. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
John Nickland, in this interesting spot right now, so be over there. But I actually agree on what Meg just said, because I sort of wanted to talk to you guys a little about. When the young student did, or not that young for a student, I guess, but when a student gets up here and speaks, from my perspective, everything we do has to be about these kids. And we need to treat that differently. It's not going to be 3 minutes per student, right? Let them say what they need to say. The reason we're all here for however long we're here. And the thing that disheartens me isn't that she was told anything wrong. It's that she clearly walked away not feeling like she was welcomed, not feeling like her opinion was wanted. She got up and her thing was that no one had asked her and that there were lies. And you can hear trying to figure out what the lie was that you thought was told. And I get that. Probably were in the same spot sitting there. The thing we missed is the opportunity to just ask her, well, if someone had asked you, what would you have wanted to say? Right? Give her that chance to open up. And I'm going to try. I'm over there to be aware of that. I know it's hard to be aware of the moment. There's a lot going on over there. We're receiving a lot from all of us. We'll try to be aware of that. Everybody, let's call each other out on it. Because those kids are the point. And please continue to treat them special. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. We will have another.
Myler, just wanted to second Dr. Mugis, just to like explain how we jumped from that initial vote to 2.9, just so that the community understands why that choice was made. Thank you.
Really quick question. Nobody else is going. Can you keep what we did the budget on last time, or because we've already voted on it, we cannot? Like the public, you know how we just had we had our vote. Can you use that same one again, or are you not allowed to?
That is an option. There were three options when the budget did not pass. We could have gone directly to the contingency. We could have put up the same one, or one would add a different amount. But we have one more shot. Can have one more shot at it.
You still can.
Pardon me?
You still can. Not only could.
Correct.
You still can.
We didn't decide to go with the 2.9. That was not a vote. It was a request of the superintendent and the business office to take a look at that amount again, to see what that would look like. So it would be a jumping off point for our discussion this afternoon. Well, if there's no other comments at this time, we will close this. There will be another comment session at the end of this. Thank you. All right, at this point, I'd like to turn the meeting over to the superintendent and the business for presentation on our options for our budget. Julie, do you want to start?
Muted.
Is she muted?
Yeah.
Julie, you're muted.
Still muted.
You muted.
I unmuted and then it moved. I apologize. So just give me 1 minute, because I'm from afar. I didn't have a lot of notice to switch my screen over to our notes. So if you could just give me one minute, I apologize. So in our last conversation, the board, at our last board meeting, we discussed there's a timeline which is very tight, which is dictated by the state. So we have been, just for anybody watching the video or for the board, just to know that we are trying to update the website in real time as we're putting together these documents in very short time process. So we basically have Thursday and Friday to put together just some numbers to take another look at what 2.9 looks like. So I want to talk about that as well as our timeline. I just want to review with you as well. So let's see here. All right, so just talking a little bit about where we're at, as well as our timeline for the budget. So, our budget vote, is dictated by the rules for a second vote. So basically, if you work backwards, our vote will be on June 18th, and that is the date that is given to us by the state. And so we have created a revote hearing section on our website. And so just talking a little bit about our timeline, and Gina, as the district clerk, just correct me if I'm wrong, but so you need to have your budget hearing and your budget notices. There are deadlines for those. So our budget, so our first public notice, which is required by law, is to be published no later than June 4th. So the district's official newspaper is the Eagle. And so in order to have our first notice published in the Eagle, that will need to be published at the end of this week to meet the deadline. And we need to, they're holding a spot for us to get them the information tomorrow. So we have a good relationship with them. Typically they would want it by now, but Gina, I don't know the exact timeline, but Gina has worked out with them that we could get them information for the first notice tomorrow. So unless that's changed, Gina, has that changed?
Nope, that's the way it is.
Right.
By noon.
So knowing the timeline is tight in order to meet those legal notices, in order to have a second vote or a revote as it's referred to, we needed to have a direction, and that's why we had the conversation last meeting, just to find out where the board was leaning, because there is some work to be involved in that. We wanted to have some up-to-date information for you. And so what Karen and I did Thursday and into Friday is that we made some, we wanted to take another look at what the 2.9 looks like. So originally when we presented the 2.9 and then later settled on the 6.96, that was based on the information that we had at the end of March leading into early April, as we were getting our state aid numbers, looking at our projections for staffing, which makes up a very large portion of our expenditures each year, and really looking at any grant funding sources. There's less certainty, so we wanted to really update our numbers to real time as of last Thursday into Friday. So here are some of the adjustments we have made. So we'll go over this more formally. Our budget hearing must be at some point next week. And so in order to have as much time as possible to prepare, we looked at next Thursday evening, but there is a concert on that evening, so we're moving the hearing to Wednesday. So our budget hearing will be on Wednesday, where we'll present everything much more formally. But again, just giving the board some discussion point right now, you know, and if we were not to use the 2.9, but And I will have Gina put this information into the minutes, in the draft of the minutes, so that this is, so people don't have to write it down. But the adjustments that we made to reflect what we know as of actually today, Karen and I went through it again this morning. So we increased our state aid to reflect the additional 76,463 in foundation aid that we received on that second budget run. So we adjusted that. We also adjusted our projected faculty and staff salaries for known departures and new hires for the actuals to date. So we've had obviously some not only teachers announcing they're leaving. We did hire one person so far, our math physics teacher. We have 3 very strong candidates for art teacher. We're checking references right now, but kind of knowing their years of experience, we were better able to project where that opening or entry step will be. Knowing that now we have Mr. Greeny leaving and being able to look a little more closely at what type of new hires and or interim appointments we'll have, both for him as well as for the director of PPS, knowing that we're now going out to post that. Partial funding, we believe that we can partially fund the second reading AIS position through in the title grant. So really looking more closely, they just released the title grant and opened that up to apply for the grant, which gives us a little more, a better look at what our title grant funds might look like for next year. And through some partial changes in some of our expenditures and or replacements for new hires, the additional foundation aid, we're able to pay for a portion of the SRO contract through grant funding. So the small rural schools grant, I did just recently apply for that. And so that is 28,000 that we'll be able to fund the SRO salary portion of that with. So it kind of returns 28,000 back to the bottom line. So we are able to have a better sense. And also we've made the decision to completely eliminate the BOCES PR service instead of a partial reduction. We're finding without right now with Mrs. Hoffer leaving and just having just some partial services because other people are picking it up, it's not working out very well. It is really difficult. So to kind of monitor social media and the sites, just making sure that we are able to properly communicate through social media, making sure, you know, that we're not able to respond to comments. Sometimes people are asking questions. Getting some of our newsletters printed. So we have our top 10 newsletter coming. We're trying to print our postcards, that it would be better to just internally plan for those. It's not working very well. So I think we can gain a little bit by just doing everything in-house completely for 1 year and have better continuity because it just seems like there's confusion. Some of the people filling in aren't posting correctly, which was part of the issue with the board meeting change time last week. So we were able to get money through some of those key sources or get a better idea of our expenditures. So we do believe that originally from a 6.96 to a 2.9, that we would need to eliminate a custodian and an AIS reading teacher down to 1 reading teacher. If we go with the 2.9, I believe we can maintain that AIS reading. So we'll have 2 AIS reading teachers and we should be able to maintain the custodian. The cuts that would remain are 2 cleaning positions, out of facilities, but keeping the custodian. A custodian can also do cleaning responsibilities and their function. So it seems like that, to me, is a better operational decision to make. We still would see a reduction of the clerical position, which would be the guidance secretary, and we will be not, we won't be cutting a person's job. We will be relocating somebody clerically and dispersing the guidance functions into those other clerical positions that remain. We will still see a reduction of one elementary teacher through attrition and changes to the AIS structure. So we have 2 elementary teachers who are retiring. We would not replace one. Our math AIS teacher would be going back into the classroom because any certified elementary teacher can deliver AIS math through our new structure at Tier 3. So so we have some changes, as I have explained previously, as to how we will structure AIS and really be more committed to dedicated time every day to small group structure. So we can account for Tier 3 math AIS through the new structure, which is why the decision would be made to keep 2 reading teachers as opposed to just having 1 reading teacher. So, if the board, I know we went through that rather quickly, but if you have questions, I can go over that. So that's what a 2.9 would look like. So slightly different, just based on our new numbers that we know today. Time changes everything, sometimes in the positive, sometimes in the negative. I think we benefited from this knowledge of a little more time. So that's our best guess, and it's our best guess of what we think the new hires will come in at.
Julie, can you talk a little bit about, if we go out this 2.9%, can you talk about what happens, if it doesn't go through contingency, just kind of letting people understand why we're looking at this route rather than trying to go back out at 6.9 or at a different number, just.
Right. So, and Karen, if you can assist me with this. So, so New York State gives us, as it was brought up at the end of public comment, gives us a few options when your first vote fails. Our options, and I presented them to the board last meeting, is we could go out again at that 6.6, which requires a supermajority. We could go out somewhere in between. So our maximum allowable tax levy is 2.9. If we went out at a 3.0, that still requires supermajority. So anywhere between 2.91 or up is supermajority required in terms of a 60% approval. If our second vote does not pass, then we are required to adopt and take on a contingency budget, which Karen just talked a little bit about contingency. There's an old version of contingency, which many of us still probably are thinking about. So I just want Karen to talk about the recent changes in contingency budgets.
Sure. So in the old days, the contingency had parameters on how high the admin portion could go and your retirement system and stuff. But now a contingency budget is strictly, you could not raise the levy any higher than your previous year. So we would be back to where we were this year, which would be an additional 143,000 and change in cuts that we'd have to make. So there's no cap on the spending, but there's a cap on your tax. So again, that our admin portion is well within the reason of the number. Everybody remembers that it can't be over 10% increase from the prior year. That's no longer part of the law, but we're going to maintain that anyway. So to Julie's point, no matter what we go out at, if it fails, we're at 0. And what she's stating now is we've maintained everything that we had at the 6.9, pretty much, with no additional cuts. And our big fear, if we went at the 2.9, there'd be additional cuts. But because of the added funding and our known hires versus what we guesstimated, we've been able to come
down from that 6.9 to the 2.9.
Right, and I
that's-
want to be clear that we're talking about those two positions in the 6.96, but Karen and I did tweak some other areas such as the PR to try to make that work because we've heard from the public and we've heard from the board. And, you know, of course, you know, the administrators and I all agree that that you know, as much as AIS that we can try to maintain is important. And I think hearing from the facility side to lose a custodian and 2 cleaners is a significant impact to the facility's operation. So we really tried to, you know, really fine tune the numbers for faculty and staffing. It is going to be tight. You know, and try and the opportunity to take advantage of some more solid known grant funds will help with that.
Right, so I can speak to that a little more in that we reduced the expenditures by 100, we needed to make up 201,000 going to the 2 different tax levies. So we reduced the expenditures by 124,000 and change, and then we increased our revenue by the 76,463. So that's how we made this balance. So that the state funding helped a lot, and then we were able to tweak based on our notes, like she said, cutting the BOCES and her writing the grant for portion of the SRO. So that's how we got to this number.
Right.
Sounds like a good exercise.
Oh, it was fun, okay.
How do you respond to something you say, well, how bad would 0% be? How ugly would it be?
Julie, question.
Julie, do you want to come to that?
So the amount again it's 140 about 143,000, correct?
45.
Additional cuts.
Correct.
So most likely we are then now looking at probably both the AIS and the custodian again. Unless we find something else, but there's really not much else to take away from because again, we've really tightened up everything that we could to try to make this work in the 2.9 because we've heard how important, I mean, obviously we want to try to maintain everything and it's not possible, but knowing that, you know, really hearing from a lot of our stakeholders and some of these conversations that these were 2 areas where we were trying to really look at least trying to maintain. We really tried our best to make that work, but another 143,000 is going to impact us maintaining that. We won't be able to do it at 0%. I would say on that too is not with certainty. So we have to present a balanced budget. So we have basically today, unless the newspaper will wait longer, we don't have much more time to say with certainty we can present a balanced budget. Now, would a grant opportunity or something possibly come up? Possibly it might, additional grant funds, but we can't say that with certainty. So to present a balanced budget, that's where we're at. You know, if we had a 0, it's possible. I try not to promise what I know we can't deliver, and I just don't know if we can not have any more cut. 143,000 is a lot of money, so it'll be difficult.
It's a full-time job.
It's more than one.
Thank you.
I appreciate the fact that you were able to sharpen those pencils enough so that we could keep those positions in the budget. Still, I'm sure it will be a tight budget year, but be able to maintain that is encouraging. Thank you.
So, you know, I think the options now are, do we want to approve and again, you're not necessarily approving all the line items, you're approving the amount to increase the tax levy by. So, correct, Karen?
No, actually, they're approving the total budget expenditure. They're not approving the tax levy. We won't even have the rates for the tax levy until August. So it's the total budget they're approving, the total expenditure.
Okay.
17. Right, 17 million.
Correct, 17,894,277.
So if you wanted to say, have a conversation about a higher number that's super majority, Karen we would need a break for a few minutes and Karen would need to calculate what that is. So again, you don't have to necessarily approve all the line items. And I'm not saying we should do that, but I am just doing my legal duty of telling you that is a possibility but this is what the board, kind of led us to, and that's why we're presenting the 2.9. So, I don't think we should go, unfortunately, if we go any lower, it's a reduction in revenue of some sort. And I think we should, in our situation, not leave revenue on the table. And I suggest the allowable 2.9, but that is something also to consider. But we do need to adopt something this evening so that we can meet our notice in the newspaper tomorrow.
I appreciate your efforts, the grant, your extra duties, running a budget multiple times. And also the time. It's amazing how much time helps you in this. You should vote in every year.
The only way you can do that is if it's a revote, and in my 15 years, this was the first one. I actually went back to the last budget that didn't pass was 20 years ago. So this was my first exercise in this, and I had no idea the timeline was that short to do all this. This is incredible. We normally start the budget process in December and have until April to adopt, and we've got a week. I mean, this is crazy. So thank you.
I mean, I hear the community's voice. I understand 7 votes is a squeaker, but I'm terrified of a 0. So that's, I don't know if anybody wants to know my reasoning for saying 2.9, because that's a heck of a lot better than 0. It only takes 1 vote. It only takes 1 vote for the whole thing to go away. If we're looking for a 60 vote majority and we get a 59.9, that doesn't cut it. And it just scares me half to death to think that we have to fund this school at the level we had last year, which is comparable to what we had in 2019. So.
Does anybody have any other questions for Julie or Karen? Thank you for the update. Appreciate that. All right. Julie, anything else to add before we move on? You did. Julie, you're muted again?
Sorry, apologize. No, just, we're happy to answer additional questions or at the time when the action comes up, certainly if there's any last minute questions, we can answer them.
It's a short agenda. It's coming up next.
Yes, okay. I'm trying to get back to it.
Now, one of the options that we do have to consider is that we can, instead of waiting until the end of the meeting for our public comment, we can open it up now. We wouldn't have it at the end, but that would require a motion and a vote for us to do that.
But that would eliminate the public comment at the other end.
At the other end, we do it twice. It would be here if anybody had any questions or concerns to share about the budget.
I think there's going to be other business that people want to talk about.
It's a new option. So.
No
All right, then moving on to our action item. Entertain a motion to adopt the proposed budget for the 24-25 school year in the amount of $17,894,277 at an anticipated tax levy of 2.9%. Motion by Peter. Second. Second by Jen. Any further discussion?
A quick question for Karen. What happens if that number turns out to be 3%? Whatever the 17 million turns out to be 3%?
That, again, that's set in August. It'll depend on the town.
Okay, so that's a bonus, okay, okay.
You're only adopting the
I
budget
don't know.
dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
And some places might be 2.6 and some might be 3.2, depending on how the,
Okay.
full apportionment goes, so.
And the equalization rates.
The equalization rates. Remember, they set them all at 100% 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
then last year it already changed, so.
Any additional questions? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Entertain a motion to accept the resignation of Sean Graney, junior senior high principal, effective June 30th, 2024. Motion by Heidi,
Reluctant second.
second by Pete. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Moving on to other business, we have, oh, I'm sorry. Entertain a motion that be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves an unpaid leave of absence for William Moore from his position as special education teacher and the district athletic director for the 24-25 school year. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby appoints William Moore to serve as an interim junior senior high school principal, 11 months position for the 24-25 school year at a salary of $180,000. And the other terms and conditions to be established by the district.
So moved.
Motion, Pete. Second. Second by Heidi. Julie, did you want to speak to the?
Yes, so thank you. I thought it would be a good opportunity. I know that there were some comments at the last meeting, and I appreciate that we might have a minute to just talk a little bit more about why this decision is being made. I did meet with the high school faculty and staff this afternoon to talk to them about the reasons. And you know, I know there's been some reference, and we've been doing a lot of work on our blueprint for excellence and what our core values are, and trying to be in line with that. And one of the things that I've had the opportunity to have is quite a bit of feedback over the past few years about administrators and the transition into the administrator role. And I think what's most important to me is that we give the best opportunity to continue to maintain and or move forward the work that we're doing and the process of finding an administrator to take the position on a permanent basis. And just for those, just to review with the board what the timeline looks like. So if we would not post a position until we accept the resignation. So we just accepted Mr. Graney's resignation, even though I've been aware of it for a few weeks. You know, Mr. Graney would not be comfortable, as most teachers or faculty, staff members, administrators, no matter what your role is. Kind of the golden rule is you never resign your position until you're appointed to another one. And so tonight we accepted Mr. Graney's resignation. So now we would be in theory able to post that position. If I posted that position tomorrow, we are right now nearing the end of May. And realistically, in order to get a viable pool of candidates, you're talking 4 to 6 weeks of posting in the newspaper, posting in, am I lost? Did you lose me, or can you still hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, as long as you can hear me. All right. So we have 4 to 6 weeks. We post administrative positions internally. We post them through some different job boards now. So there's one that's an educator job board called OLAS. We are now just starting to post on other job boards. So depending on the cost, we may post on additional job boards. We will post in at least 1 or 2 of the local newspapers. So really you're looking at a 4 to 6 week timeline. A 4-week timeline is very short, honestly, to give people an opportunity to know or to apply for a vacancy. Now that we're at the end of June, early July, we have 4th of July holiday. We have faculty and staff, parents and families who are heading out on vacations. They're not very in tune to school. It's a very difficult time to make stakeholder decisions and to have a viable option to involve stakeholders in the process. And if we are able to do that in early July, we're talking by the time that process resolves between possibly a committee process and a second round coming to me and or meeting with the board at some point, that could also take another couple of weeks just based on schedules. So you're looking at the early possible date of appointment is early, but most likely mid or late August to be appointed to a position. Again, that golden rule, if that person is not an internal candidate and is an external candidate, the golden rule again is that person's not resigning from their position until they're appointed. So if that's in mid-August, so the standard the expectation in the educational world is you give 30 days notice to your current position. And so now we're not looking at a start date until, depending on when the appointment date is and when that person puts in their resignation, from the date of their letter of resignation, we're talking end of September, early October. There is no opportunity to work with Mr. Graney. There's no opportunity to hear or meet with stakeholders ahead of time or to know what, other than just doing the research on the district and talking to the superintendent and the stakeholders in the interview. That's not much of a transition. I have heard a lot of feedback that has been difficult. I've heard a lot of feedback that it's difficult, that candidates don't have any knowledge or they don't seem invested in the district. There are a lot of cons to right now running out and posting, in addition to the fact that there are multiple, I didn't count them today, it might be different than last week, but there are multiple vacancies administratively just in our BOCES. And we also have Capital Region BOCES, which has more than 30 component schools in it, and Questar 3, which is Rensselaer, Columbia counties. So there are, I'm not even aware of their vacancies. I think the pool is shallow right now. I also am concerned, and my observation as an administrator and now almost 2 years in as assistant, superintendent, that we don't have, I'm concerned that we need to take a look at our administrative structure. I'm concerned that we have put a lot on the plates of 2 building principals with no assistant principal. I know there's a desire to be lean and cost efficient, but I've heard feedback internally from faculty and staff. Could we have an assistant principal to help them with discipline, to help take some things off their plate, to make them more accessible? I think there are a lot of things that overwhelm an administrator and make it difficult for the faculty and staff to build relationships with a new administrator. And I think we also need time to really look at our structure. Is there a way to support the current structure, or should we be looking at a different structure down the road immediately? I think we need to have those conversations. We do have the opportunity. Mr. Moore is a certified administrator. He has committed 21 years of service to this district. He's been dedicated. He's held a variety of roles. He has been a dean of students, discipline. He's built relationships in that role as a teacher, as an athletic director. He knows the challenges that the current structure administratively faces. The current administrative structure might present. He knows a lot of the current challenges we're facing in the district on a variety of levels. He's willing to step in and willing to give a really committed approach to the administrative function and the district's function as an interim for a year. It gives us the opportunity to just take a better look at how we have our structure to support the community, our students, our faculty and staff, our families, and our administrators so that they're successful. And it also gives Mr. Moore a chance to basically have an on-the-job interview if he is interested in, applying or interested in the position long-term. So I think it's a temporary measure that has a lot of pros. So we obviously have had some conversation about that because Mr. Moore is a current candidate. So he's a current employee. And so we did do a little legwork ahead of time. But, I hope that gives some insight to the community. Obviously the board is aware of my rationale for putting Will's name forward. I know that there's been some feedback just, since this has come out this afternoon, it seems pretty quick and rushed. But again, think about the timeline I just read. We have not even 4 full weeks of opportunity, and Mr. Moore will still be in his teaching position, but this gives an opportunity for him to start becoming familiar with some of the administrative responsibilities, to work a bit with Mr. Graney, attend some meetings that he might be able to get some more information to help him hit the ground running this summer. The other thing that's important to note is that, today when we met and talked to the faculty and staff, that I laid out the timeline. I also shared some of my reflection on some of the feedback I've gotten, and Will and I have discussed, and we put out to the faculty today. It's going to take probably 3.5 to 4 full days. That probably the last 2 weeks of June, we're going to give an appointment to every faculty and or staff member who wants it in the high school to meet with us for a listening session. It allows us to listen, to give the people an opportunity where they don't have to come in on their vacation or take the time away from their summer job, to have us hear what they value, what works well, what they haven't liked, what is a concern to them, what they need moving forward. So, if we don't appoint him now and we waited till June 18th or 20th, but because we may have to move our board meeting now because the vote is on the 18th, we won't have the results most likely by the time we have the board meeting. That's too late for that transition. And I think it's important that we try to have a more comprehensive and well thought out transition for, both the administrator and the faculty, staff, and students. So I know that was long, but I think it's important for people to understand the rationale that went into this. Any questions or discussion?
So will we be required to apply for the job after a year?
Well, I think, we've got to look at what the structure is and looks like. If we're going to be seeking to fill junior, senior high school principal. So at some point we'll be discussing what that process looks like. If for some reason we were somehow changing the administrative structure, he may be interested in one of those positions or not at all. He may say, thank you very much. And we may say, thank you very much. And he may, he's on a leave of absence from 1 year from his position, he would go back. So yes, obviously he would have to express formal interest and there will be some sort of process, but I don't know what that exactly looks like yet, because I think we really do have to have a little more discussion about how we can make these positions more successful. Long before I got here. And I know some people don't like going back to the past, but this structure has been in place for a while, and it's not working clearly. So I think we need to be thoughtful and look at what costs involved as well, because we've got to make sure that we can afford whatever structure we decide to go with. So I think, yes, there'll be a process for sure. I mean, this is a 1-year appointment. This is not, he's the principal in a probationary appointment.
I do hope he does a great job though.
Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Abigail Turcott as an independent evaluator to WSWHE BOCES effective May 29, 2024, for the purpose of annual professional performance review for the 23-24 school year. Motion by Heidi.
Second.
Second by Peter. Any questions or comments?
Can I just add, just to make sure everyone's clear? So again, this relates a little bit to the amount of tasks that we ask of our principals and our administrators currently. So if part of the APPR process, and I have explained this, obviously the board is aware of this, but just to remind you, the principals observe their own building faculty roster of teachers. So that and the announced observation. The unannounced observation is to be performed according to the APPR agreement that is made with the teachers union, and then we need to send that to the state and follow that. Is that the unannounced observation of the teachers are done by an independent evaluator. That's the person they don't work for. So because we're a small district, a lot of other districts might have somewhat a different administrator coming in and doing that. Michelle can't do that because she observes the special ed teachers. She can't do the unannounced because she is deep into CSE meetings. She holds over 200 CSE meetings a year. It's not possible for her to assist with those. So that puts, I believe it's close to 48 total observations on both principals in addition to their daily function and tasks. They have gotten behind in a little bit. We're not going to meet our contractual deadline by June 1st based on unexpected emergencies, student crises, just a variety of situations that may come up that need their attention, that they need to walk away from that unannounced. So typically I would be able to hopefully assist with that. My schedule has not accommodated that. In addition, so our non-tenured teachers have 3 observations. They have an additional announced observation. I take all of those on, so I just finished those up. So, this allows for us to complete that under a contractual and obligation and as required by the state. So Abigail Turcott is, she is a trained administrator. She is trained and certified, and every year we have to be recertified in observation. So I just want you to know that she meets all the criteria and that this is required again. And I want to be sure to explain to the board that it is not by lack of effort on the principals, but it is sometimes it's just, we've had other years where this situation has occurred. So not to bring in an independent evaluator, but I think it's unfair to the teachers to make them wait for their observations.
Thank you. No questions? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Entertain a motion to. It's awkward. Entertain a motion that the Board of Education, Salem Central School District hereby approves the amendment to the employment agreement dated May 28, 2024, setting forth the revised terms and conditions of her employment.
So moved.
Motion by Peter.
Second.
Second by Jen.
So this is for just the conclusion of the contract.
With the calendar.
Yes. And really the gist of it is we're allowing Julie to work in Florida so she can take care.
Remotely. Yes, and there's an opportunity to convert some existing sick time if necessary for family. But it is attached to the agenda.
So my battery is about to die, but I just want to be clear, just that I'm not on vacation in Florida. So you said Florida, and some people may think I'm on vacation. So I'm not on vacation.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Moving on to other business, the Juneteenth is their status. There's an discussion item.
So I apologize. I just need 1 minute to run and get my power cord because if not, I'm going to lose you. So if you just give me one, I apologize.
This is an easy answer.
I think we voted on this last year too. Have to go do it every year.
I think
We didn't talk about it last year. I thought,
I don't think so. It was talked about.
well, we never voted.
No.
Gotcha.
for tangent to that is the discussion of setting the date for the trade meeting. Because they have the 19th.
So we have to do it.
I apologize. I thought my power cord was there and it was not. All right, so Juneteenth, a couple points about Juneteenth. I just want to remind the board, this is a little confusing. So New York State has adopted some holidays recently. So Juneteenth has been observed for a few years federally, and I believe 2 years ago was starting to be recognized as a state holiday. So Juneteenth is a federal and state holiday. So under as a state holiday, schools are not in session. So now the teachers unit and all 10-month employees no longer are working on Juneteenth. There is a provision in there, I believe, that if it's on a Sunday, Juneteenth is observed on a Monday. If it's on a Saturday, there's no observance. But so we go by however the state recognizes the observance of Juneteenth for when schools are closed. But again, this is because it's a federal and state holiday, which means that this is a holiday similar to, a Martin Luther King or a July 4th, those types of holidays. So this year, Asian Lunar New Year is approved. That was not observed during the school calendar because it was on a weekend. Next year, Asian Lunar New Year, I'm just giving you the difference here in school holiday versus state. Asian Lunar New Year will be observed during the week. And I did mention this when we adopted our calendar. Asian Lunar New Year is identified as a school holiday where schools are not required to be in session. It is not a federal or state holiday. It is a school holiday. So that is a different situation. My question is for Juneteenth. So Juneteenth is not recognized in WASIA contracts or management confidential contracts. So technically our WASIA unit members and anybody who's management confidential, supervisors and or administrators, our clerical facilities would be contractually required to work on Juneteenth. The majority of districts in our BOCES COSER, the last I knew, I think we were one of the only districts planning to be open as a district. So school is closed. So my question is, I'm not able just to say, don't come in that day. That would need to be a board resolution until we would recognize that in the contracts where it's not recognized. The board, I don't want to make that decision unanimously, like on my own. I think that it is I would encourage a consideration of closing the district that day, because a majority, like state employees are not working and the majority of our schools are not. BOCES is closed.
So you just need a vote from us, is that what you're?
If the board, and it would just be for this school year, and then I think we would have more conversation about it contractually. So I think, you know, in the end, we would want to recognize that what some districts are doing is either recognizing Juneteenth as an additional day off or saying Juneteenth is a floater holiday. So you could, if you know, it is right before graduation at times. So we may say, listen, you know, if some of the facilities crew is working on Juneteenth, they get a floating holiday so they can take another day off for that. So I believe Fort Ann is doing that. So I think we could have some conversation about what that looks like. But in order, if we were going to observe it this year and close the district, the board would need to make a resolution because we can't pay people and tell them not to come to work. It's not in the contract.
Okay.
Thoughts?
It's a federal and state holiday. I'd like to put it in place as a federal and state holiday and move on from this topic. Let's, if we need to.
Yeah.
Entertain a motion to observe Juneteenth, June 19th, 2024 this year with no staff coming to work.
District offices in the campus would be closed. I think we want to put that language in there.
That district office would be closed and campus would be closed.
So moved.
Motion by Heidi,
Second.
second by Peter. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0.
We'll clean that language up. I mean, campus, the public can come on campus. They could have baseball games, but we're closing it, so we're not going to maintain it and have people there that day.
Are there any other action items? All right, at this point in time, I'd like to open the meeting back up for a second public comment session. And people, if you have something to ask or speak to the board about, if you come to the podium, we will allow 30 minutes and try to remind you around 3 minutes to wrap up your comments.
Myler, thank you for this transparency. This is a great sheet. And I think if going into the 6.9, we had this, I think the community wants to see this. They want to see every number.
You did have it.
You did have it. Okay. All right, perfect. Also, I'm grateful that Mr. Moore stepped up. My daughter Kelsey was a student of his, and she's really excited that he has taken on that position. So thank you. Also, I appreciate Julie in talking about administration and figuring out how to have that work better. I don't always think that going to an assistant principal is the answer, but I do believe we could do better in that area. So thank you. Thank you for your time and explaining the 2.9. Also, I think the community we were kind of lost in how that shuffled down to 2.9 and why. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll come back again. I'm going to point something out that hopefully Julie will correct me if I'm wrong. But in addition to the state aid that we had, part of what we're saving is that we had 2 administrators leave and we're replacing them with interim administrators, which is going to save us some benefit dollars and other things. Obviously, in another year, we're hoping to have full-time administrators back in those positions. So there's going to be a bump already that we know of to what we need in a year. So I think it's worth pointing out to the public that the way we got lucky, that we can get away with 2.9, but 6.9 is going to be. But we're probably going to have that 4% before we look at anything else that changes in the next year. So we may well be looking at asking for an override again in a year. And I think the community should be prepared for that. Is that accurate for what I'm saying, Julie? How
So just to correct one thing, yes, you're pretty close. It's not necessarily that, so accounting for the administrators that they left, they would get a 4% increase this year. And so we anticipate that that those will wash a little bit. We're looking at a little bit of cost savings there just because you're not giving raises. We're going to be starting people out kind of where we were and not adding a 3 or 4% raise on top of that. But also, for example, we typically budget for teachers new teachers at a step 5, and we hired a new teacher at a step 4 instead of a 5. So there was some cost savings there. So just trying to anticipate a little more. We typically, for hard to find positions, might budget higher at a step 10. And so art is hard to find. So we thought we might have to pay someone who had a lot of experience or might be more costly. We anticipate not paying a step 10 based on our pool of candidates that we're choosing from. So yes, I mean, there's always the chance that it could go up. But I think we'll be relatively close. But again, if we look at somehow adding to the administrative structure, I have a thought to maybe making some of that grant funded in the short term to see how it works out. And, you know, I think there are different scenarios that don't involve an assistant, or maybe an assistant and or some other support. So I think that's what we have to hash out there. So yes, John, you are correct that there could be some additional cost, but just it's a little complicated.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
The timing involved in votes and other issues are in part a result of your decision to have a weekly as your official newspaper, correct?
The timeline comes from New York State.
No, I'm saying your notice to notify.
June 4th is the state deadline.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not too good.
To make it to the paper, we'd have to get it in by the 29th.
Right. Right.
And even if it was the Times Union and you're going to put it in Sunday's paper, you're still going to have a deadline of this week. So the Eagle is a little closer than maybe a Times Union or a Post Star. Correct.
I understand the Japanese language, that there's no one character to communicate the word crisis. Instead, they use two: risk and opportunity. It seems like you're looking at emphasizing risk and not the opportunity. With 58% of the people who are okay with 6.9, that's pretty basic number. And to drop to 2.9 undermines the support that they have for you at nearly 7%. So it's a disappointment. I wish Mr. Moore the best of luck going from a member of the teachers union to evaluating teachers next year. And then if he, for some reason, does not continue in that position, returning to the union where he evaluated people can be walking down a rather political tightrope. So I hope he's successful. And I hope that you're not constantly having openings in your administrative team, because it is debilitating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to add a comment or a question to the board? Actually, then we'll close the public comment session. Thank you very much. And entertain a motion to move to executive session for the purpose of discussing student scholarships. Section by Peter. All those in favor, please, raise your hand. Motion carried 5-0. We don't anticipate any. Actually, have to. Thank you.